Free Talk Live. You can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. It's Mark with you.
Jay.
And Angie.
That's what we do here on Free Talk Live. We make it possible for you to call in and talk about, well, whatever's on your mind. And tonight we're going to talk about this situation going on with Hong Kong and China. It's gotten really complicated for a lot of businesses, and I mean, I must say I feel a little bad for them. A little bad, not terribly bad, just a little.
Oh, you mean the businesses that go and get the licenses from the town and play ball and make sure that, they just, that they're not allowed to hire guys like me because they don't have the proper numbers and stuff? I don't feel bad for any of them.
Well, they the businesses, that go to governments.
How it works in Hong Kong, but I imagine. I mean, do you have to have proper government documentation in Hong Kong to get a job? I don't know about Hong Kong, but in order to do business internationally, you are either an above-board business that goes and asks the government, or you're a smuggler. And that's I smuggled a lot of hay in my day.
It's a rough business to do internationally. I'll say that much. So this story comes from 6abc.com, 6 Action News. Yeah, because, nobody wants inaction news. Nobody wants lazy news. Sixers fans supporting Hong Kong ejected from preseason game amid China NBA controversy. Philadelphia, I guess that's where the 76ers are from. That makes sense, right? Philadelphia, 1776. A fan was ejected, not injected, they didn't do that, people, from a Philadelphia 76ers preseason game against the Chinese squad. Well, I don't know. Guangzhou Lung Lions on Tuesday night after. When you read through these things ahead of time in your head, you just pass. Just zip right past that stuff. But when in real life you're reading it out loud, suddenly, well, I don't know how to pronounce this word. I suppose I could have gone ahead of time to some pronunciation thing that, put the word in and it would have given me the proper way to pronounce it, but then I would have forgotten it anyway. So, no big deal.
Guangzhou
Lung Lions?
Guangzhou Lung.
Okay.
I've heard the word Guangzhou before, but I've never seen it in print.
And
Kung Fu kind of thing, I think it is actually.
It's probably a region, and they're from that region. Let's see, Tuesday night after holding signs and shouting support for Hong Kong. The incident came as the NBA finds itself connected to the ongoing protests in China. Sam Walks and his wife his wife appears to be Chinese, just taking a wild guess here, holding signs in support of Hong Kong during the 76ers game at the Wells Fargo Center, but those signs were confiscated. By the way, for those who don't know, Hong Kong is basically a free section of China. So Britain had a pretty free market negotiation that allowed a trade zone, Hong Kong, near China, so that everybody could sort of do business easily. And then at some point, Britain had to give up. That was part of the deal. They had to give up
There was
Hong Kong.
a 100-year lease or something.
Yeah, and they had to give it up early.
And it was in 1997.
Yeah, I think it was 99 was when they were supposed to do it, but they had to do it a little early. And then
Why? Why'd they have to do it early?
Because it looks bad. Great Britain was very much an imperial power.
Okay.
And so when they're holding on to the final vestiges of their empire in China. Don't forget, Great Britain was responsible for the Opium Wars that killed many, many thousands of people in China and, forced many Chinese citizens into addiction. And, they don't like that part. They didn't have the greatest PR
So they
there.
ended it because of face value? They wanted to make it look good?
More or less. And
okay.
And China said, well, this is the goose that laid the golden egg. We're going to leave it alone. But by leave it alone, they meant we're going to slowly turn up the burner on the pot.
Okay.
And so the pot's slowly been going. Now, recently, there were some protests over an extradition treaty or extradition agreement that was being passed through. Agreement might be the right. An extradition bill that was being passed through the Hong Kong legislature and was likely to go through, that said basically people who did bad things in China, well, people who were charged with things in China could be extradited to China rather than being able to escape to Hong Kong.
Even if it's like bad-mouthing the government on Facebook.
Sure.
In Hong Kong. So
right.
I can understand why these, Chinese folks are, these folks in Hong Kong are fighting.
The Hong Kongese, or whatever we were going to call these folks that are in Hong Kong. It's hard for me not to support them outright, but there's some...
They really need guns. The people of Hong Kong need guns. The people of Haiti need guns. The people of France need guns. The people of Venezuela need guns. All these places where you can't have guns, you're getting starved to death, you're getting tear gassed, you have to have, these massive, riots, people taken to the streets, and nothing happens.
So tell me why they were holding free Hong Kong signs. Like, what is the purpose of those signs?
So what happened was they got the extradition thing kicked out finally after a few weeks of protest.
Okay.
But then the protesters said, too little, too late. We want to not be bothered by China at all. And so they're holding a more or less nonviolent revolution. I mean, there's nothing can be this large and go on this long and not have some violent aspects to it. Mm-hmm. But I suspect the casualties on the Hong Kong police side have been pretty minimal.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, there's some windows getting broken. There's certainly some property damage going on. They occupied the legislature hall at one point. They're very resourceful and tricky when it comes to their social media stuff. So they're outflanking people, like they're trying to shut down their social media. They outflank them, and it's very interesting to watch, and probably the freedom story of the year. But nonetheless, it's got a lot of big companies involved now.
Okay.
So if your company wants to do business in China, and this is the second largest market in the world if you don't count the EU as a market.
And there's a lot.
So call it the third.
There's a lot of smart people in Hong Kong.
Yeah, as I understand, Hong Kong actually has the highest IQ of any region in the world.
Yes, and I was listening to some stuff about that. But like the thing is, Hong Kong essentially is like a private place. Economic a free economic zone or whatever they call it. And so I was listening to somebody was talking about how the people in Hong Kong, their like average IQ is like greater than like any other like congested or any other like city or populated area in the world. And then I was kind of wondering, I'm like, well, does Hong Kong have Section 8 housing, where they, provide housing for people who can't afford it? Do they have, a welfare system? Have they had generations of a welfare system where for generations people can just sit around and eat Cheetos and watch TV all day? Which are questions I don't know, but I assume that it probably doesn't based on how in Hong Kong, it has a very like low unemployment rate. There's just anybody who's like capable of working can have several jobs from what I understand. There's a lot to do. There's the economy is just, extremely robust, and so you have a lot of people there that are smart, and these kids are smart, and they've all, these young folks, they've been working in technology. There are smart, energetic, driven people go to Hong Kong to get into business, to get into the stock trading or the high tech stuff, or there's a huge financial hub. So Hong Kong is just basically a lot of smart people. And I mean, they're doing cool things with taking distracting the surveillance cameras with the lasers, or injuring the optics within the camera. I guess you can burn them out. And then, the whole like wearing a mask, like in the picture right there, from what I understand, that's not so much about, there's sick people. It's more like, trying to not be under the facial recognition of everybody wearing these hospital masks.
Yeah, as the wearing the masks is first, it started to be something about not spreading illness to your friends and neighbors, but it's turned into basically being able to wear a mask in public and not get, foil the face recognition. What are your thoughts? The number, 855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE. Love to hear you if you have some insight on this whole Hong Kong situation. Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Call in. Talk about whatever you want. We're talking about this Hong Kong situation. For those that don't know, the specific aspect of there's this sort of revolution going on in Hong Kong. China's trying to suppress it. They don't know exactly what to do, and a lot of companies have gotten caught in the middle. And I'm not exactly one to feel bad for companies, but I think it's an interesting question for libertarians to entertain, because we also, in my opinion, get a little caught in the middle on some of these ideas. So first off, I want to tell you about Freedom's Phoenix. It's a liberty-oriented news aggregation site. It's where I've gotten some of my show prep for this evening. And if you want the newest and freshest perspectives on current events from those who value liberty, freedomsphoenix.com has it. They're a news aggregation site, so they've got news stories from everywhere. Their daily dispatch is the best way to stay up to date on science, technology, historical findings. And I love it for that, by the way. They're very good about that. Liberty News, government overspending, and the rise of the police state. Freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com. Even if I didn't have to do show prep for a nationally syndicated libertarian talk show on 200 stations across the country, I would still keep my freedomsphoenix.com account going and get my daily dispatches delivered, because I just love the news that they give. Not every single story, but I don't need to. 1 in 20 stories? Great. Fine. That's what I'm looking for. Freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com, freedomsphoenix.com.
I just read an article the other day. I like reading about the electric car technology. I've always been like a car and truck guy, and these guys are building these like handcrafted aluminum electric trucks in California, and there's a really good article about that if you're into trucks on Freedom's Phoenix that I just read the other day. It's pretty neat. Someday when I'm Bitcoin's worth $11 billion, I might get one of those trucks.
Sounds like a good idea. It's nice to have. I mean, it's always nice to have a new vehicle. They have the nicest safety features. Anyway, going on with this story, apparently the Guangzhou Lung Lions were playing the Philadelphia 76ers in Philadelphia, sort of a promo game preseason. And the incident, and apparently a couple of fans were ejected for holding free Hong Kong signs. Not exactly the most radical statement, right? Free Hong Kong. It's not like they're saying, death to Xi Jinping. They're just saying they'd like to see Hong Kong free.
They weren't violent or anything, and they just got ejected?
Right. According to Sam Walks here, this is the husband of the more obvious Chinese lady, right?
Yeah.
So I get the impression Sam is your average American. He has a sign over his face in this particular picture, but your average American guy, and he married a Chinese woman, and presumably they met and fell in love, and everything's wonderful. Sam and his wife were holding signs in support of Hong Kong during the 76er game at the Wells Fargo Center, but those signs were confiscated. There's no foul language, no politics. I asked, why not? They said, don't give me a hard time. And Walks said in an interview with the Action News. So I guess the idea is that he asked them what's the problem with holding the signs, and they said don't give a hard time. I don't know. Anyway, Walks admitted that they he then stood up and started yelling "Free Hong Kong" before being escorted out. I think it's shameful, harsh reaction. Walks added.
And in that picture there that was just up there, where it shows the signs. There's like nobody in the seats behind these people.
No.
It's not like it's being,
disruptive in that way.
In the way.
Interestingly, if it's a problem, then why did the stadium cam go to them? If somebody's holding pictures of foul language, F the Lung Lions or whatever they are, then you don't show a shot of that. Now, the way that these live shots work, it's not like just some camera just automatically goes and nobody has any control over it. There's a director in the control room who's deciding which cams go at any given time. And if that director didn't want some pictures of those signs to go out, I presume
you don't have to hit the button.
Right. I presume Action 6 News wasn't just hanging around the game with a bunch of cams. It's a crappy place to do news stories from, just waiting to find Hong Kong protesters. So I suppose it could be that somebody had a pretty good cam and got the shots and then sent it to Action News. But That seems odd. I mean, these aren't shots taken from an iPhone. I could tell by the way they're shot. So,
well, I did video production in high school, and we did help out with some video production at the the hockey games and the basketball games in Springfield for like the colleges and stuff. And I worked with some of that stuff, and there was always 2 camera guys, if you had enough of them, that their job was not basically, the action in the basketball court anyways, and in hockey was not so much to you follow the action of the game, but was look for crowd reactions, look for like, a cute picture.
Hot gals.
Or a hot girl, someone with a sign, or
the kiss cam.
The guy all painted up in the team colors with a kid on his lap all painted up in the team colors. They wanted you to find that stuff. And they actually wanted you to move the camera in a sort of was like a good shot of just that. So there are people at all these, if you have the manpower. I mean, and us high school kids went and did this stuff because that's what the manpower was, for these college games back then. And so I know, they look for stuff like that.
Right, and they absolutely do at major. This is a major league game. Sure. I mean, it's a preseason game, but it's a major league game nonetheless. And they absolutely look for that. They look for the hot mom holding the sign up, jumping up and down. They look for the the crazy fan all dressed up and dancing in the aisles, whatever it might be. They're looking for it. They're looking for that human interest shot. It doesn't have to last more than 30 seconds, but it creates the experience at the game.
And a lot of it on those cameras is just B-roll also, to where they'll use that to make promos with, and even though it doesn't even go out live, it's always got it's
their footage at that point. They can do whatever they want with it.
Executive directors watching his B-roll stuff and just clipping things out of it to use like in commercial, or a highlight or whatever.
He's taking notes. And
they're getting their attention now. They wanted to be able to show these signs so that they could advertise for Free Hong Kong or support it, and now they can do that with the story that's out there and the way that it was handled.
I hope a ton of people do it everywhere. Super Bowl, Free Hong Kong.
Yeah, I mean, this will probably go into a little bit that basically the NBA is trying to get into China, and that they've got millions of NBA fans in China, and they don't want to upset the Chinese government too much, and so they are trying their very best to say middle of the road, but that's going to be pretty hard when this revolution's going global and they're kicking people out holding signs. I
mean, censorship in any form is just bad, as far as I'm concerned.
As far as I'm with you. I think they would have been better off if the Chinese government had put up some counter sign than this, and just flash the pictures up and hey, look, it's people's got some opinions on this subject, and just leave it at that. But there's a lot of pressure coming from China. And this is one of the things that I think is kind of interesting because, Jay, Richard Nixon went into China to sort of open up the marketplace so China could participate into the free marketplace. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
A good thing, right?
Yeah.
But Richard Nixon didn't say that the Chinese government had to behave like good people, just that they were opened up to the marketplace. And this gets really complicated for libertarians. 855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE, as in Free Talk Live.
Chronic pain, stress and anxiety, fatigue or lack of focus, dependence on opioids or opiates? John Bush here, owner of Brave Botanicals, inviting you to try a free ounce of kratom, the controversial plant remedy the government doesn't want you to know about. Why, you ask? Well, it's big competition for Big Pharma. From grandmothers cutting Oxycontin to keep up with their grandkids, to young adults kicking Adderall and quitting drinking, more Americans are turning to Kratom to help them through the day. But the government won't stop us. When the credit card companies kicked Kratom to the curb, I accepted e-checks and crypto. When Facebook shut down my ad account, I did podcast interviews and advertised on Free Talk Live. And now, to give a big F-U to the man, I'm giving away Kratom for free. To get your free ounce of Kratom, go to freeounceofkratom.com, pay $5 shipping and handling, and I'll send you a free ounce. Visit freeounceofkratom.com to claim your free ounce today. That's freeounceofkratom.com.
Free Talk Live. Call in. Love to hear your opinions in this Hong Kong situation or anything else. It's Mark with you.
Jay.
And Angie.
855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE, as in freedom. Speaking of freedom, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies can afford you a great deal of freedom. So go to Bitcoin.com. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, there's more than one type, and my preference is, at the least for right now, Bitcoin Cash, because you can do transactions with Bitcoin Cash with more or less no fees. I mean, like a negligible fee. You can trade and exchange with people without having to pay any kind of fee. Whereas the old style Bitcoin, which seems to be preferred for sort of holding and retaining value and things like that.
Large transactions,
you'll pay in many cases, many times as much in a transaction fee. And that's what Bitcoin.com advocates for too, Bitcoin Cash. So go check them out. If you need a little information about Bitcoin, they've got the Getting Started section there. They are the name in cryptocurrencies, so go to Bitcoin.com. I love their news section, news.bitcoin.com. They've got a real staff as opposed to just grabbing stories off the internet and reprinting them. So it's Bitcoin.com. Getting back to this story here. Actually, before we go to the story about the NBA and their relationship with China and Hong Kong and the complications that this revolution, I don't know what else to call it, are raising, I want to talk about sort of libertarian questions surrounding
opening up markets. Communist China.
Would you say, Jay, that the American Revolution was a step forward for human freedom?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, American Revolution, good. Now, would you say Nixon going into China and opening up that marketplace for the world, China to do business with the world, was a good thing?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that Obama opening up Cuba for the world?
Oh, absolutely.
Good. So here you have, would you say that the United States doing business with Saudi Arabia, a dictatorship, basically, a kingdom, is a good thing?
No. And here's why. Well, when you say doing business, there's all kinds of business being done.
Right.
So us buying oil from Saudi Arabia.
The U.S. government?
Or the United States.
Yep.
Exxon,
U.S. businesses,
Shell, whoever, anybody. That's fine. Saudi Arabia has oil. They put it on a marketplace. It sells. It's delivered. It's consumed. But when the United States is, counting on Saudi Arabia to buy hundreds of billions of dollars worth of bombs, gunships and, jets and just weapons of death and destruction, that kind of business I am opposed to. And
it gets complicated, right?
It gets complicated because, Saudi Arabia, for example, is the examples of why all these other countries are bad, the examples of why ISIS is bad because they decapitate people who don't want to be Muslims. Saudi Arabia is still doing the same, is still cutting off people's heads as of a couple of years ago.
Public executions, yeah.
You're still they still have all this real horrible stuff that goes on in Saudi Arabia. Women are still don't really have any rights there compared to the rest of the modern world.
Don't forget what's happening to the Uyghurs in China. So this is one of the difficulties.
Uyghurs,
these are Muslims in China.
Okay.
And they've got a religion, and the Chinese government doesn't like their religion. No shortage of people that have religions the Chinese government doesn't like. I mean, they just don't like that stuff.
Yeah, because the religion the Chinese government wants you to worship is the government, the
Chinese government. Yes, and this is the point that I'm trying to sort of get to here is that we live in a world, whether we like it or not, where nation states negotiate who gets to trade with whom from within their borders to outside of their borders, whether we like that or not. I mean, we don't get to change that.
And that's fine.
And, it's not fine. I hate it. I mean, I hate that the United States government can tell me with whom I can do business and with whom I can't. Now, Bitcoin helps with that, but it doesn't entirely solve the problem. So on one hand, we're saying it's good to do business with China, and I think it's good to do business with people to bring them into the world community.
Working in a factory, making some kind of textile or some kind of product is far more better job than working in a rice paddy and hoping that there's a market to sell your rice in.
You know how we know that is true? It's because people do it. If it sucked more to work in the factory than it did to work out as a dirt farmer in China, scratching a living out of the earth, then people would go and be dirt farmers.
And what they do, these people that farm, what they've done in China, examples I've heard, I have a friend who actually does some direct business in China. He's like an importer, and he has stuff made in the horse industry. And he has told me about how these guys are, they're raising crops. And they're doing it all by hand and mules. And a couple of the kids, they go get a job in a factory, and then they basically pool their money, and they come back together, and they buy a walk-behind combine. Yep. It's like 3 foot wide. And now they're have just like upped their production for much less cost. And then, so they've taken a lot of this money that has essentially trickled in to the rice paddies from the United States, and they're now no longer are. The mom's having to pretty much, give birth in a rice paddy, the story you hear, because, well, we can just, use some machines now and people can go do some other things like work in the city and whatnot.
Increases productivity, and that's a good thing. And I love that. Anything that'll help people, I'm for. The problem is that I think that the United States is a revolution. You just said that you support it, and I do too. Yeah. To some extent, I support the revolution that is that created the United States. So we are a revolutionary government, and that revolutionary government, the idea that it creates this republic and then goes and supports dictatorships and
that part I don't like. I don't like government
kings and those sorts of things.
Influences or incentivizes anything. I don't like when subsidies are given to farmers for corn. I don't like when subsidies are given to poor people, because what happens is you get a over surplus of corn, and then they start creating things that would never exist in. We would not have the high fructose corn syrup being jammed into everything without government intervention.
Sure, it's subsidies for the sugarcane manufacturers in the United States in order to make them competitive.
It's beet sugar, and corn is this terrible. Sugarcane's like the best of the sugar.
Well, the reason we have the high fructose corn syrup, as I understand it, is because the sugarcane producers in the United States, Florida, basically, said we can't compete against all these other sugar places in the Caribbean. And there were a lot of them. There still are a lot of them down there. But most of those islands don't produce cane anymore. They just don't have it anymore. And it's because we ran them out of business, because their biggest market had then subsidized local cane over imported cane, and it put tariffs on imported cane to the point that it was the same price as local cane. And this dual whammy of the subsidy and the tariff then basically ran these countries out of the business of sugarcane. And it's not surprising that some of the people there still hold grudges about all of this, because they certainly do. But what that did is it drove up the price of the cost of sugar. If you wanted to make your soda pop with cane sugar, well, it's going to cost more than high fructose corn syrup or beet sugar or whatever they were going to use. And you can go to the grocery store right now and take a look. In the grocery aisle, there's a giant section of that aisle that is all high fructose corn syrup sodas, and then there's a little bitty strip of it that's cane sugar. Now, some of the soda manufacturers have gotten out there and they said, we're going to make a classic Pepsi that's cane sugar. And that's
throwback.
Yeah, it's cool. No doubt. Now, I drink it if I could tolerate the taste of Pepsi, but I can't. Every once in a while, if I find a cane sugar sweetened Coke, I'll taste it just to remember what it was like. It doesn't taste that much different to me. Maybe I don't have the greatest palate in the world, but I do get these cane sugar sodas for that time when I start getting a hankering. I always get cherry soda. I used to like Dr. Pepper, but Dr. Pepper has caffeine. I can't have caffeine, so I get a cherry soda instead, and it's close enough for me.
It's all like acid in my mouth. I'm not a big soda fan.
Yeah, you hate that. You're so fit right there with your arms almost as big as mine. 855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE. Angie helps me work out, so thanks, Angie.
Woo-hoo.
Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Call in, talk about whatever's on your mind. We're talking about Hong Kong v. China. and what's going on there. It's complicated. It's Mark with you.
Jay.
And Angie.
855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE. Want to thank the amplifiers, especially Libertarian Banker, who is a gold amplifier. And if you'd like to be an amplifier, and you should be an amplifier, if you listen to the show regularly and you like the ideas of liberty, well, the amplifier program's for you, because I believe that it's the single best use of your Liberty dollar. And the reason I believe that is it's not going to paychecks. It's not paying for power bills or anything like that. It's going directly to advertise Free Talk Live to people, and Free Talk Live brings the message of liberty to more than 200 radio stations across the country. Could be more than 100 between 100 and 125,000 podcast downloads per month. And who knows how many people listen to those? Probably more than that amount of people. And it could be more if you don't donate at amp.freetalklive.com. That's amp.freetalklive.com. Yes, there are some perks for amplifying, and people who do it continue to do it because, well, they get a better podcast show. So there you go. amp.freetalklive.com. So, Jay, we were talking about this sort of situation with the United States doing business with. And, you know, countries don't do business with countries. They allow businesses within their borders to do business with each other.
Yeah, and that's why I love cryptocurrency so much, because it basically removes the, these financial borders. And it's just like, when the U.S. military, for example, is pulled back from all over the world when Tulsi Gabbard becomes president, because that's what she promises to do, is to basically bring the military home. The only other presidential candidate I ever heard that promised to do this was Ron Paul, and obviously we didn't get to see what he could do. But I feel what will happen shortly after is because the U.S. military is no longer forcing everyone to accept U.S. dollars, for example, or to trade in U.S. dollars or the petrodollar. I feel the U.S. dollar will inevitably collapse quite quickly after the U.S. military is not around the world, forcing everybody to do it. Because we've had this monopoly on the unit trade around the world because of the military presence around the world. And, this is where these major governments can essentially be, their militaries can essentially be neutered, not like wiped out. But I say neutered by using cryptocurrency because we're no longer supporting their, financial system anymore. But basically, a lot of us have to use it.
In the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, the author more or less parrots what you're saying. He says that on the first level of taking over a country, they send in some engineers and they say, "Oh, you guys need a dam or a power plant or whatever it is," and
just the reason to put them in debt.
And they offer loans from World Bank and that sort of thing. They know these countries can't pay them back. There's all kinds of spiffs for these crooked leaders.
Right. The resources are basically collateralized.
And so the people, right, and so the debt is socialized, but the benefits,
profits
trickle up to the top,
right?
And then these people go out of power, or they move to London or wherever they do, and they take the money with them. But if this leader doesn't want to play ball, then they send in what he called the jackals, right? And the jackals are hitmen, more or less. So there was more than one little plane with a Latin American leader that went down over time. I know one from Panama, and I think one from Peru, and there's Ecuador. And hey, we don't know how that happened, and so they're assassinated. And then if that doesn't work, then the situation that happened with like Noriega comes into play. So Noriega is sort of a U.S. puppet, but sort of out of control at the same time. Daddy Bush sends in a freaking attack on Panama and bombs a civilian population, killing thousands, and in order to get this one leader. And nobody says anything about it, because then the Iraq or the Kuwait war situation thing kicks off shortly thereafter. I mean, this is a war crime,
and this has been business as usual pretty much my entire life for the United States military to enforce the United States financial policy. So we can't really say that we have, any, it's somewhat revolutionary that, we're doing trade with China, for example, and they're still living under a communist rule. But the thing is when you have these middlemen just everywhere.
Yep.
Because basically, if I want to buy a product from China, I mean, just a red tape makes that product really expensive, all the way around. Unless the product is, of course, subsidized somehow by the the federal government or state government or whatever. Like these electric cars are subsidized, and all kinds of stuff is subsidized, which just creates more market manipulation. So there's really we've never experienced fair trade on an international basis.
No, I don't think that it's happened recently, but I'm on one hand, I believe in trade because I believe that if dollars don't cross borders, that tanks do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like trade, too, but I just want it to be, left alone. Just let people trade.
The other aspect of it is that more or less, the United States has supported the Chinese government. They gave them most favored nation trading status and a variety of other things.
Under Clinton, there was this Chinese trade accord, but there was a distraction while the Chinese trade accord was happening. It was called Monica Lewinsky. And, my buddy who goes over to China, and even a friend of my dad, she worked for American Optical, which was a big optical, lens manufacturer in Massachusetts, Southbridge, Mass. They had a huge facility. Well, the American government financed their whole move to Mexico, and also all these other factories and textiles that were bustling when I was a little kid in Western Mass. We got a bunch of hydropower factories everywhere.
All that manufacturing gone.
New England is just littered everywhere. There's rivers. There's all these huge mill buildings now that are now hipster apartments, and it used to be textile manufacturing literally for the entire a lot of the world.
Yeah.
And with the Chinese trade accord, that stuff all went out, and a lot of that, like General Motors and these big mills, they were basically giving government money, government grants. My friend who worked for American Optical, she used to have to come to our house when I was a little kid, make phone calls to China because she didn't have the long distance. My dad, he had a $500 phone bill every month in the 80s because he was a horse trader and talking to people all over the country about horse business.
Mm-hmm.
And so she'd come over and use the phone to call China, and she was basically instructing the people, and I'm not China, Mexico, and there was another China thing. And she would fly down to Tijuana, and she was setting up the thing because she understands this precision equipment to basically grind and make lenses.
Right.
And it was all funded by grants and things from the federal government, all under and this woman hates Clinton over this stuff.
And this is this is what it all comes down to is this complicated situation where on one hand, dollars should be free to cross borders. So should people be free to cross borders because that's just labor. It's just the importation or exporting of labor. And, that they should be free to do that. However, when the government begins subsidizing, then you're once again in the business of picking winners and losers. And the government's terrible about that. And, none of us do well. I mean, look at the financial crisis. They decided that it was the banks were too big to fail. And they robbed the poor people to pay the rich people. It's insane.
Yeah. In the 2008 tarnish asset, whatever thing that they had, both Bush and Obama were all, they're all gung-ho for it. Yep, we agree on this. And I mean, they agree on everything anyway, as far as I'm concerned.
There's all kinds of pictures of them hanging out puppets. And smiling.
And they, what was it, $800 billion? And how many homes did debt forgiveness happen on, Any? Yeah. I never heard a report of one.
There were some debt forgiveness that happened probably after the people finally moved out and left the house to be gutted of its copper and things like that. So, I mean, once there's no value in the home anymore, then, they'll start doing some debt forgiveness. I guess.
Wall Street billionaires.
But I've never met anybody who had it.
The Wall Street billionaires became trillionaires. The Wall Street millionaires became billionaires. That's basically all that happened.
Yeah. Everybody got their golden parachutes and all that stuff. And that's what I feel like is going on here with China. So we've got a situation where the NBA is kind of kissing Chinese butt here. It's like, we got to get rid of these Chinese protests or these Hong Kong protesters because they're going to ruin our deal with China. And the list of companies that this is going on with is long. So this week, also a game player who played this. I'm not sure exactly what the name of the game is, but I know that the company is Blizzard, which is owned by Activision. Anyone familiar with Activision?
Nope.
They were the competitor to Atari back in the 80s.
Oh, goodness.
and they're still around. Atari got their head smashed, but Activision still lurks about. And I think they've got World of Warcraft, actually, as one of their titles.
That sounds right.
Yep.
So one of the players did what?
he, posted something positive about he was from Hong Kong and posted something positive about their little revolution going on there. And Chinese government rang up Activision, said, ring, ring, you got to get rid of this guy. And so they just fired this dude, banned him from the competitions, all kinds of stuff. 855-450-3733.
Our history classes start teaching the Constitution around 1776 or even later. The foundation of our Constitution goes deeper than that. Without examining the context that gave America its principles and its founding documents, we cannot understand the foundation of our liberty and our constitutional republic. Liberty First University teaches online classes in a way that all ages find compelling and understandable, from middle school to law school. Join us at lfu.freetalklive.com to watch the free pre-recorded webinar. Watch now at lfu.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. Call in. Talk about whatever is on your mind. It's Mark with you.
Jay.
And Angie.
The number's 855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE as in freedom. So there's this conflict going on between China and Hong Kong. There are protesters that in Hong Kong that even though they got their way regarding an extradition bill that was going through, now they want more freedom. And I can't say I don't support people who don't want more freedom, but there's some companies that are getting drug into this in ways that they weren't expecting.
And like hotel chains or hotels are like at the lowest they've ever been since they've been open, like occupancy. I was reading a thing like the average hotel stay is down to like $20 a night at some of these hotels in Hong Kong because there's nobody there.
Right. Well, I mean, people can't go through. In many cases, they don't want to go. They feel like there's some kind of revolution going on. They're not visiting Hong Kong like they have before. It's a bit of a tourist location, and people go to see this amazing place. You know, it's this free market that was built on a rock with no its only resource is the free market. It basically has no resources of its own. And that makes it fascinating to see as this sort of experiment. We can see what the free market does in proximity to large population areas that don't have freedom. Because we've got Singapore, we've got Hong Kong, and there's probably some other good, there's all kinds of special economic zones around. I think there's thousands of them. I don't want to hazard a guess right now, but many, many special economic zones, depending on how you classify a special economic zone. And we can see, like, business goes on in those places. They'll follow the incentives, and that's what happens. Well, now a company, and this is big news, on the internet right now, is that Blizzard is under scrutiny from lawmakers, gamers, and maybe if it's even its own employees for punishing a Hearthstone competitor. That's a game, Hearthstone, who voiced his support for protesters in Hong Kong. This is from BusinessInsider.com. Blizzard Entertainment, the company which is behind video games like World of Warcraft and Overwatch. Heard of these? Anyone?
Yes.
Yep. Angie? Good. Is under scrutiny for its decision to punish an esports player who voiced support for protesters in Hong Kong. And I'm really sorry to this guy. Chung Young Wai, the esports competitor, better known as Blitzchung, shouted, "Liberate Hong Kong! Revolution of our age!" in Chinese amid a post-match interview at Blizzard's sponsored Hearthstone tournament in Taiwan. Blizzard responded by stripping Blitzchung of his prize money and barring him from Hearthstone competitions for 1 year. Blizzard said Blitzchung's comments had violated the competition's rules by damaging the company's image.
I wonder how that damages the company's image.
Well, if China says we're not going to let you do this thing or that thing inside of our borders, then it is damaging. However, do you want to make it so that your competitors cannot make some kind of political statement? I mean, didn't Tom Brady support some Republican?
I don't know.
I don't pay attention to sports ball, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's out there, and there's all kinds of competitors that are, they want to express. That's what's important to them at that moment. And sports is about passion. It's about what's on these people's minds, and they're
a great distraction.
Well, it's.
Can you tell me what it means when people go down on their knees? Like in football players, they go down on their knees. What does that symbolize?
They're thanking Jesus for the touchdown that they got. And the touchdown's important.
When do they go down on their knees? During the national anthem?
Yeah.
Or at the
during the national anthem. Like, why
so
do they?
The first guy to do it, Colin Kaepernick, the first guy that was public that I know of that did it, he did it because he did not like police brutality. He was basically
against black people specifically.
Right. He was basically protesting police brutality in America against black people. And if you look at the statistics of basically all the people who are brutalized by police, a very, very large percentage of them happen to be black or brown.
Mm-hmm.
And different people play with those statistics differently, and I think it's brought to the forefront with this recent, cop walks into a Texas home and shoots a guy story. It's all very interesting, but many people came down to
she was found guilty,
and Ross Ulbricht gets 2 years plus two lifetime sentences plus 40 years. So check out freeross.org, folks. Try to get Ross out of there, but it's just ridiculous, a double standard.
Yeah. So basically the sports players, they're going down on their knee to protest something, largely when they do it during the national anthem, and Kaepernick did because of police brutality. To me, I can totally see somebody choosing not to stand for the Star Spangled Banner because the song includes this in the third verse that nobody sings. I mean, we did when I was a kid, but it was only so that we could say that we sung. We went to a Christian school and you sung all kinds of stuff. So we were just a bunch of singing mofos there, and we sang the third verse, and I didn't know anything about the slave and the whatever, but they're talking about hanging slaves that were trying to escape, and I could see why a black person might not want to sing that particular song.
Yeah, I would take a knee or more. At any time I'm at something in the national anthem or pledge allegiance to the flag, I purposely make it a point to I'll even turn my back to the flag if we're all standing up because there's somewhere where you're standing in a crowd of people, just to virtue signal that I withhold allegiance to the United States. Well, and it brings up a great conversation. You might get beat up for it, but I haven't gotten beat up yet.
Well, you're not the sort that people look to beat up. You're a big man. But I will say this. So the Pledge of Allegiance makes a lot less sense than the Star Spangled Banner does. So almost every country has a national anthem. Almost none of them have some kind of loyalty oath that you say to their flag. And the United States is one of very, very few.
My kid got in trouble at school for third grade because I say the Pledge of Allegiance in school every morning, and he doesn't like to go out there for that because it's just not something that he does. And he got, in-school suspension. He's in third grade, so they took recess away because he didn't want to go and stand out there one morning for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, he should. Oh man, I don't know if I should talk to your kid or not. We're either going to have a lot of fun or get him in a lot of trouble, but. I mean, that's great if kids can make a stand. I started in fourth grade. I'm not, and I didn't do it for political reasons. I just did it because I didn't like the teacher. And, but the political reasons kind of started to fall in line shortly after that because I had to come up with a better reason why I wasn't doing it. Yeah. And today I virtue signal that I do not pledge allegiance to this fiction called United States that, spends, $400 billion a year, blowing up other nations or more. And I would say that it's anti-American. The Pledge of Allegiance is anti-American. And the reason I would say that is this country was founded by people who were very clearly, the Declaration of Independence is very clear about loyalty oaths. And the Pledge of Allegiance is very clearly a loyalty oath. So to me, obviously anti-American. Now, many people would argue anti-Christian. I think adding the under God part made that a little more murky. They did that in the 50s. But, I think that one of the best things to do is ask people who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance. And if they don't know, you tell them Francis Bellamy. He was a National Socialist. Can you think of another National Socialist? Oh, yeah.
And if they can think of another National Socialist, the one they can think of is Hitler. And that kind of ends that conversation pretty quick. So these are some takedowns. Wham, wham, wham for the Pledge of Allegiance, and it puts anybody who's sort of pro-pledge way back on their heels. If they need a little more, you show them what the old salute to the flag before they conquered the Nazis looked like, and that was the arm held aloft at a 45-degree angle. Now, it's not quite like the Nazi salute. Your hands tilted in towards your face rather than out towards the away from your face, but nonetheless, it's pretty darned damning when you see a historical picture of a bunch of black kids with their arms raised aloft in a Nazi salute to the American flag while they spout the Pledge of Allegiance. Obviously, you can't tell what they're saying in an old black and white photo, but nonetheless, it's shocking. 855-450-3733. It's 855-450, free as in freedom. Free Talk Live. Call in. Talk about whatever's on your mind. If it's between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, wherever you are in the world, you can call in and talk about what we're talking. We're talking about anything, honestly, on Free Talk Live. I mean, you can talk about what we're talking about, too. You can use either the phone lines at 855-450-3733, and we're talking about the situation where this company, Blizzard, which is owned by Activision, as I understand it, has banned a competitor from their esports thing, Hearthstone. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. Basically, a video game player can't play video games with this company anymore because
of his speech.
Because he supports Hong Kong, and this company's trying to get business in China, and that sort of thing. So, it's a very interesting story. You can also call in on the Discord lines. I want to tell you about those. You go to discord.freetalklive.com. You download an app there. You create an account. You can use the call-in lines there. You'll sound great because they do sound great. They sound like you're right here in the studio.
And we're going to do Freer Talk Live tonight. Silver Dave, Nobody, and I believe that they can call in on Discord on Freer Talk Live.
Yes.
Also, that's a good way to get a hold of us and listen to us on Freer Talk Live. I believe it's Twitch and Discord are the only ways you can actually listen to Freer Talk Live at this moment.
And, Freer Talk Live is a little product we put out where we can do kind of crazy things at night. No FCC and... I hear you guys use naughty words.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I try to only use them appropriately. I want to set example for the young kids.
The young kids that are up at midnight listening to Libertarian talk.
You just sound stupid when you're just dropping F-bombs every chance you get. Don't be a truck driver. There's proper ways to use them. George Carlin explains it quite well if you want to Google, basically George Carlin on swearing. It's a great video.
Yeah, well, F that. 855-450-3733. Upset fans and supporters of the Hong Kong protests have blasted Blizzard's decision to punish Blitzchung, and many have vowed to stop supporting Blizzard entirely. And I've seen people deleting their accounts on social media.
Oh, good. I support that.
Democratic Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon has also weighed in. Blizzard shows it is willing to humiliate itself to please the Chinese Communist Party. That doesn't sound like an entirely inaccurate statement.
Yeah, Blizzard are essentially Chinese government bootlickers at this point if they're, basically squelching people because they say something that Chinese government might not like.
Yeah. It's got to be painful for this guy. This is his job, and they fire him for having an opinion. Single act of protest during a video game competition in Taiwan has garnered international attention and a massive backlash against one of America's largest and highest profile video game companies. Blizzard Entertainment is facing major criticism after punishing Blitzchung, a Hong Kong-based esports competitor who voiced support for Hong Kong's protests during a Blizzard-run event on October the 5th. Now, mind you, the event is in Taiwan, which is a breakaway province of China, where what they call the Black Chinese, as opposed to Red Chinese, ran after the revolution. And Taiwan is a pretty free place. But China doesn't even accept that Taiwan exists, or that it is this breakaway province. China believes it owns it. Let's see, going on here. He voiced support for Hong Kong's protesters during a Blizzard Run event in October the 5th. Blitz Chung, whose real name is Chung Wai, is a Grand Master level player in Hearthstone. I'm sure that's good. Blizzard's very popular digital card game. During Blizzard's official broadcast of the Asian Pacific Grand Masters competition, Blitz Chung appeared in a post-match interview wearing a gas mask. As the broadcast ended, Blitz Chung shouted, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age," with the apparent support of the two tournament broadcasters.
And, there's going to be a lot of fallout over this. I mean, just even anybody, like with these guys in this basketball game, earlier, and we're gonna be seeing more signs for free Hong Kong. I hope we're gonna be seeing more players on these online gaming, wearing shirts like free Hong Kong. I mean, I almost want to get a free Hong Kong shirt and just start wearing it. I mean, one of us should be wearing it on this show. We got viewers,
right? I do support Hong Kong being freer. Now, I suspect I don't support what their revolutionaries want, which is probably more democratic stuff, is what they talk about, and that
maybe
kind of thing.
Just to be left alone. It sounds like they don't want China coming over and invading them and telling them what to do. I mean, that really seemed like a concern to me. And the only way I think Hong Kong cannot be invaded by a foreign military is if every man, woman, and child is heavily armed.
I tend to support regionalism over homogenization. So if if Florida wants to have its own government and break away from the United States, I support that. If New Hampshire wants to do that, I support it thoroughly.
There is a New Hampshire exit movement.
There is.
Just Google New Hampshire exit. It's out there. NH exit.
And I'm for Hong Kong exit too. But it's hard. It's hard for me to get terribly excited. If, say, for instance, Orange County, California, wanted to break away and start a communist, government, and everybody lives. We take all the money from the rich people and give it to the poor people and all that stuff. Then it's going to be hard. Even though I support the regionalism, it's going to be hard for me to care terribly about how successful they are, and that's my kind of confusion on many of these things, because I don't know what every protester wants, and I suspect every protester doesn't know what every protester even wants.
Well, the people that Luke Rudowski was talking to in Hong Kong a few months ago, I don't know, wearechange.org is Luke Rudowski's news aggregate.
Yep.
And he does a good job. He does a lot of man on the street, interviews, and he was in Paris a lot. And he was in Hong Kong a few weeks ago, and he was talking to a lot of young folks. I mean, a lot of people in their 20s that don't want anything to do with China. They don't want to have this. The people of Hong Kong literally have this fear that the China is going to just march in there and just wipe them out because they don't want to be part of China.
It's a very real fear, and it should be, because it could be very bad. And there's lots of companies that are dealing with getting stuck in the middle here, as Blizzard did. And when I say stuck in the middle, I don't mean that they haven't made decisions. They certainly have made decisions, and they're responsible for the decisions they've made. If you want to support this Hong Kong protester and delete your Blizzard account and stop playing World of Warcraft and Hearthstone and Overwatch and these sorts of games, then I support you in doing so. I can't do that because I don't play World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, or whatever the Overwatch and all the rest of these things. I don't do it.
Yeah, essentially, none of us have a horse in that particular race when it comes to the gaming stuff here. But we could talk to people about it.
And the only way that is going to the only language that Blizzard's going to speak is dollars and cents. And if they're barred from the Chinese mainland, then that's millions of potential accounts, and certainly many thousands of accounts that could potentially spend lots of money. And if they're barred from that, that's money that they're missing. So they have to miss more money than that.
China may be the greatest marketplace in the world.
855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE. Free Talk Live.
Divvy is crypto made easy. Anyone can use Divvy to securely and seamlessly spend, earn, store, or exchange digital money, the US dollar, and euros. Divvy is fast. Transactions happen in seconds with fewer fees. While other altcoins are languishing, the Divvy price has risen substantially against BTC. Now's the time to make a switch to Divvy or make your start with cryptocurrency with Divvy. Visit DivvyProject.org. Divvy is crypto made easy. Plus one-click masternodes. DivvyProject.org. Again, DivvyProject.org.
Free Talk Live. Call in, talk about whatever's on your mind. We're talking about Hong Kong v. China. And I have no idea what's going to happen there in the long run. I'm hoping for, well, I can tell you this. If the protesters last, then they'll win. But it's the lasting part that's hard because governments, well, the state has been around for at least 9,000 years. They know how to play the long game. And
yeah, because they're not alive.
What's the population in Hong Kong compared to China?
There's got to be a few million in Hong Kong, and China is like 2/3 of a billion.
Okay.
So it's we're talking about large numbers here. And so I obviously the state grows over time, but it also gets antiquated, it gets sort of bound up and then collapses, and then a new one pops up, and hopefully more human freedoms created in the process. Let's go to the phones here. We got well, before we do that, let me tell you about helpmetakebitcoin.com. If you run a retail business, you need to take cryptocurrency. You need to take cryptocurrency. There's this huge market of people out there that are trying to find places to spend their cryptocurrency. And wouldn't you like that to be you? Helpmetakebitcoin.com makes it easy. Really super easy. Compare it to taking a new credit card or something like that. You got to ask the bank. You got to fill out forms. You got to do all these things. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com. Simple steps. Within moments, you'll be accepting cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Dash in your store. There is no paperwork or approval process to open your account. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com. It's that simple. Let's go to the Discord lines. Got Mortified Penguin calling in. Penguin, what's on your mind?
Greetings, guys. I wanted to call in because you were talking about Hong Kong, and I follow this, I guess, pretty closely. I mean, I can't help it with, I guess, the news, but basically the online circles on basically Discord that I go in. I guess I get a lot compared to the average person. I get a lot of news, a lot of up-to-date details and information about and straight out of Hong Kong.
Right. It's a funny thing that we don't get as much news out of certain areas of the world as we do the others. I mean, with the Paris shootings and stuff like that, we are getting news all the time, whereas Southeast Asia doesn't seem to be as considered as important to the mainstream media, and we don't get as much news.
Yeah, it's also a long-running thing. So, I mean, it's like, 19 weeks straight?
Yeah.
I believe, of protest. So, I mean, it can't really, it's been happening every day pretty much.
Right.
But
I go on to a website called Imager, or it's spelled like Imgur. And
yeah, I go there.
Yeah, on Imager. And it's news every day. They have some kind of news every day from Hong Kong. They vote up the stuff. And, I get a quick rundown of the news. Usually it's too long of a story for me to really care that much, but I'll read a little bit of it. So I get some, but probably not as much as you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about this, and I'll say some things that are important, but one thing that Jay, you said that really struck me is the comment that the people of Hong Kong need guns, the people of Haiti need guns, the people of France need guns. I mean, but I want to say, if you haven't, I urge you to watch the videos from Hong Kong. They have they have protesters with cameras, and they have that are unarmed and GoPros on them, and they're in all black, masked up, and they've got metal pipes, hammers, Molotovs, attacking groups of cops, surrounding them, isolating them from the rest of them. I mean, it's full on urban, melee combat going on there. It's pretty serious. Same in France. They're going Molotovs, smashing, surrounding and having full on melees with the riot cops, which is not unheard of in a lot of other countries. And yes, we have a well-armed populace, but we see very little of that kind of action or any kind of direct action against the state. And when it does occur,
if it were to occur,
it's not very well received.
The stakes would be much higher, right? So if Antifa goes up against the riot cops of Seattle, and everybody's got basically truncheons and shields, mimicking some kind of
medieval combat.
Not even like it's something even farther back than that, hoplites and these kind of things. Then it's interesting, but it's not. The likelihood that somebody's going to die is slim. Somebody might break an arm or go to the jail or whatever, but at the end of the day, everybody's fine. Whereas if the some alt-right group decides to pick up H&Ks and take on the local government, the cops are going to need to arm themselves, and they're plenty well armed. And
they just call in for the National Guard,
right?
Drone strikes. You'll have all kinds of stuff. And the thing, the example I was getting to is like in war. I don't know if it was a prime minister of Japan or something was like, said, well, why don't we, march on, California or whatever, previous like World War II era. And the answer was, we can't do that because the American population is armed and there will be a sniper behind every blade of grass. The problem with Hong Kong is literally a fraction of the Chinese military could march Hong Kong and wipe it out. Wipe out all the people and just take it over because the people are not able to defend themselves. And France, Haiti, all these countries where, the government is clearly doing all kinds of bad, wrong things, whether it's just in Haiti, just keeping them poor. They get billions of dollars. The Clintons get billions of dollars to, rebuild Haiti, and nothing happens. And it's just the place is basically a cesspool because of, parasites like, government and the Clintons. And then you have all kinds of financial stuff going on in France where, people are having a tough time getting along. And, yeah, some of these protesters do want more government services because they don't know any better. They don't understand anything else. But when you have unarmed populations, it is very easy for these populations to be wiped out by literally just a handful of psychopaths in government giving orders to their to the people who follow orders, giving orders to the local police or the military or whatever to go do things. And I even like seeing the people in Gaza who are throwing rocks at the Israeli soldiers who are there in, full armor and, with, semi-automatic rifles. That stuff scares the crap out of me. And this is why only way people will ever be free and maintain freedom is if they have the same ability of essentially violence as those coming at them. And governments are very well armed. And the only way that we can, not be taken over by them is to be well armed ourselves.
Penguin?
We are well armed, but I mean, what does that do for us? Like, I don't want bloodshed by any means, but what I'm saying is we're well armed, and yet people are more when someone does as much as raise a peep against oppression in anywhere from the inner city neighborhoods to Portland or Seattle or DC. You get people more likely, or the alt-right groups, whatever. You get people more likely wanting to go head to head with the other citizens that they don't like, or other people they don't like, wanting to run cars into them, take weapons up against them, than ever think about.
It's like a prison here in the United States. So in prison, you almost never have the inmates rise up against their imprisoners. I mean, it is rare to see that happen. The punishments for it are severe. What they do all the time, every time there's one of these riots, it's one group of prisoners fighting against another group of prisoners. And that's how it is in the United States, is that, one group that wants the government to do this thing and the other group that wants the government to do that thing rise up against each other with violence and accomplish basically nothing.
It's interesting how these street riots, like all the cities he mentioned, which is, I don't know about Portland and Seattle, but I imagine they have, similar gun restrictions as, Chicago and Detroit and L.A., because they're all kind of, from what I understand, these, liberal mecca cities. where you can't have any guns, like in Baltimore. And you see all these street riots that I believe are pretty much started by provocateurs in places where people aren't really armed. Although I don't know about Ferguson, Missouri. I know Missouri is fairly relaxed on gun laws.
I'm going to hold on to Mortified Penguin here. I think I have just a little bit more I want to talk to him about. The number 855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE, or the Discord lines at discord.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live. Call in, talk about whatever's on your mind. It's Mark with you.
Jay.
And Angie.
855-450-3733. That's 855-450-FREE, as in freedom. We're talking about this clash going on. That's, the revolution that's sweeping the globe. Hong Kong v. China, mainland China. And the protesters there have been going on for months. And there's no end in sight. I want to tell you about the AMP program. Go to ampamp.freetalklive.com. Do as Izzy has done. Become an amplifier. Izzy's a gold amplifier. Thank you, Izzy. And you can be an amplifier too. Just go to amp.freetalklive.com. That's ampamp.freetalklive.com. Let's go back to the phones. We got Mortified Penguin talking about sort of what good is having weapons like we have, guns like we have here in the United States, when it's the rest of the world that's having its revolutions. I mean, I say that one of the indications of a free person is that they're allowed to own a gun. But maybe the reason we're allowed to have guns in the United States is because having a gun makes you less likely to participate in some kind of conflict with the authorities on the streets.
Well, definitely one thing of carrying a gun is you don't ever want to let anybody, you don't want to get in the hand-to-hand combat when you have a gun.
They'll take the gun from you.
In fact, I have a friend who specifically asked me to hold his gun one day years ago because there was a dude who was being pretty rough to a young lady in a public establishment, and this was actually in Colorado. He's like, I got to go straighten this out. He kind of knew the people a little bit, so he felt like he was okay in doing this. But he's like, here, just take this. And I had a backpack. He just put his holster and everything right in my backpack. And he's like, we're not going to need this. He goes, but I can't go confront this guy because it is going to get physical. And it did. They got in a little scuffle. And finally the dude left. But yeah, you got to be careful when you have a gun.
Don't want to do a wrestling match. Go ahead. Mortified Penguin.
Yeah, I mean, that's possibly true, but it's just funny going to show you that amount of firepower that people are able to, project in theory, at least, for a person more than anywhere else in the world, pretty much. And yet there's really no, but you're right. I mean, the consequences of the fullest extent of violence that people can project is probably far beyond what people will actually want to do in most cases. But maybe it does prevent people from doing anything like that. We did see just the consequences of like that one guy back in the height of the racially tinged shootings and the protests and result of those. The guy in Dallas,
right? Some black guy shot some Dallas cops, right,
with a rifle, and then in Baton Rouge, like a week later, a guy did the same thing, called 911 and then hid and ambushed them, and you'd quickly see.
How come that
not only National Guard?
What's that?
How come you don't hear about people calling 911 and shooting firefighters?
That's because firefighters respond to calls, whereas cops are going around and in many cases just creating trouble. So I think that it's an interesting concept here is that to some extent this harkens back to the book Civil Resistance that I have referenced many times here on the air, and I think that it's worth continuing to reference, because in it Erica Chenoweth and her partner figured out that basically violent revolution has aged out. And I'm not saying that we should give up our guns because by no means. I'm just saying that I don't think that an armed revolution is the best way to have a revolution these days. And that may mean that doing things like what the Hong Kong protesters are doing.
Well, that's why
agreed.
Yeah,
I encourage financial revolution, which is using cryptocurrencies, getting away from these legacy fiat dollars. And the thing with comparing it to the United States is the average American is really, really just pretty much dumbed down. They're glued to their entertainment devices. They just take it hook, line, and sinker, whatever the Dems got to say if that's their deal, or whatever Republicans got to say if that's their deal. And let's not forget, America is essentially a socialist country that has these capitalistic things. And what America does is it prints money, and then it forces the rest of the world via the military to accept these U.S. dollars. So I call that as we're exporting the negative parts of socialism. So we're not seeing our neighbors, having to go, hunt rats here in the United States like they are in Venezuela because they can't export their dollars because they don't have a military to force everyone else to take the Venezuelan boulevard. But yet what the United States does is essentially bombs the crap out of countries on the other side of the world that don't want to participate in the U.S. dollar. And that is how we export the negative sides of the American socialism we essentially live in, where pretty much Americans just reap the benefits of it at this point until the rest of the world says no to the U.S. dollar, I feel. So it's really hard to compare because Americans are really comfortable.
Yeah, we're comfortable.
They're not upset.
It's hard to get people who are comfortable to revolt. Thank you for the call, Mortified Penguin. Let's go to the phones. Russell in Florida. Russell, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, look, I've been to Hong Kong, and, it was a nice trip and all that stuff. I own guns. That's nice, and too. But, I've realized that there are kindness here in America.
Kindness?
Yes.
Okay.
Kindness.
Okay.
I had a neighbor that I was having problems where I was living. They said, well, come over here and live over here with us. And I said, well, that's nice. I had a fella the other day buy me lunch because he knew I was doing a right thing. And then I called a friend of mine up in South Carolina that I haven't talked to in a while. He's doing fine. He says, are you doing fine? I said, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit. He offered to send me money. And I said, no, I don't need your money. How's your family and how's everything? There are still good people here.
Oh, yeah.
There's way more good people
Believe
than bad
it or
people.
Not.
Well, now, you don't think that's...
I enjoyed going over to Hong Kong, but that was back in 1999 before the changeover and all that.
So
I don't know about.
We aren't presuming that there aren't
conflict.
kind people elsewhere. It's just you're saying that America is great because of its neighborly attitude, right?
Well, yeah, Well, I'm saying is, yeah, I guess you might say that.
I would agree. I think
that still, I was just sort of gratified this week that the kindness that was offered to me from other Americans here that might have been different race, different gender, but the offer was there to me that there's still good people everywhere.
Agreed. 100%.
And there's a lot of good people everywhere, and there's a lot of comfortable good people everywhere. When you start having good people that are uncomfortable because they can't eat, or they're
not going to be so nice then.
Or they're worried about the world's. I think China could be the largest military in the world. I'm not 100% sure.
They claim that they can claim every citizen as a member of their army, which would make them certainly the largest. But you can't march that army over to the United States.
No, but it'd be real easy to march on Hong Kong. That's what I'm saying.
Sure.
These people in Hong Kong have a legitimate reason
to be armed. It blew my
armed.
mind the other day when you heard about the amount of people that are incarcerated in China when. And then they execute people for whatever they do. They don't need to infringe on Hong Kong. Hong Kong was nice when I was there in 1999.
I believe
You got to consider. You consider back in the between 42 to 45, there was 120,000 Japanese incarcerated here, and they were American citizens because of Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor.
That's right. Just people with Japanese surnames.
Well, they were in prison because there's, psychopaths in government like McCarthy who are come up with this stuff and convince people we need to put, these Asian folks are
I think
Japanese.
McCarthy was with the commies, but FDR.
I'm sorry, FDR. But
Russell, thank you for the call. Appreciate it.
Put them in these detention centers or whatever. I mean, it's just part of American history.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I guess not terrible. There were a handful of Germans that were put in, sort of locked up for a period of time too. It's worth pointing out, but. Yeah, I mean, I can see the fear that was going on, but obviously it doesn't behoove a free country to just do that. The number, 855-450-3733, 855-450-FREE here on Free Talk Live. Call in, talk about whatever's on your mind. We have the Discord lines at discord.freetalklive.com or the phone lines.
I want to tell you about my favorite cryptocurrency wallet, Edge Wallet, at edge.app. Edge is the wallet I use more than any other, and that was true long before Edge Wallet became a sponsor of Free Talk Live. Edge Wallet allows you to buy, sell, trade, and securely hold your cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, tokens, Monero, Ripple, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, and more. It's available for both Android and iOS, and you can download it via the Play or App Store or via Edge Wallet's website, edge.app. Secure your freedom with Edge Wallet.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. We are live. If it's between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we are here taking your calls. It's Mark with you.
Jay.
And Angie.
855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE. We've been talking about what's going on in Hong Kong and much of the sort of aftermath of this, because this little revolution's been going on for weeks. More or less. I mean, I don't want to call it nonviolent. Non-lethal revolution has been going on for weeks, and many companies are getting drawn into it. And we've read a couple of them here, which have been the NBA and also the Blizzard. And there's an article here that's talking about, from WashingtonPost.com, Tiffany & Company, which relies on the Chinese market for double-digit revenue growth, scrapped a global advertising image that some in China perceived as supporting Hong Kong protesters, even though the company said the image was taken weeks before the demonstrations began. China has been sensitive about its image at home, controlling what it allows Western businesses and its own citizens to say or do. And now, however, with Hong Kong in its fourth month of street protests, China is increasingly imposing the same strictures on what's said about it beyond its borders. It's controlling companies by saying, you're not going to do business in China, the second largest economy in the world. That's presuming that the EU isn't an economy. I think this is one area that I get kind of bunged up in. So the United States is considered a government, a state. It's, when you say the world's largest economy, the United States. Well, why don't they list the EU as the second largest economy when the EU is a federation of independent sovereign states, like the United States is a federation of independent sovereign states?
No, the United States of America is a federation of independent states. The United States is a legal fiction that was created literally in 1864, is where their charter is, and this is where the public policy of 1864 comes in. The United States is this legal fiction that started incorporating a bunch of other little legal fictions, like the state of New Hampshire is a legal fiction. The nation of New Hampshire is this landmass area that we are broadcasting from tonight, for example. In fact, the word state is defined in all state codes as includes District of Columbia. And when a word includes is used in statutory construction, it means includes only. So when some document after 1864 says State of New Hampshire, what it actually means is District of Columbia Franchise, New Hampshire. So the United States is what the IRS has jurisdiction over, which is essentially this paper world, and the District of Columbia is the United States. But the United States of America is this federation of states. And so that's kind of the wordplay difference. But that's why they call all the economies of the different nation states as all individual. Technically, the United States is just this 10 square mile,
Washington, D.C.
The District of Criminals, as we know it as, and, territories and possessions. New Hampshire is not a territory or a possession, but there was a legal fiction that was created somewhere in, I think, 1889, the state of New Hampshire.
I've heard these claims. I don't disagree with them. How would I know? I mean, I haven't done the research or anything like that, but it seems to be functionally true that the world considers the United States to be a government, and it doesn't consider the EU to be one. Anyway, going on here with the Washington Post article, other companies have gotten into trouble for perceived slights relating to Taiwan or Tibet. Last year, Marriott International apologized to the Chinese government after listing Taiwan, Tibet, Macau, and Hong Kong, all territories China claims, as standalone countries on an email questionnaire it sent out to members of its rewards program. So this isn't even an ad. It's an email sent out to their rewards program, and they listed some places that China claims as its own, and China got all upset. Mercedes-Benz issued an apology after offending Chinese consumers with an ad quoting the Dalai Lama. Outside China, the 82-year-old spiritual leader is among the world's most popular figures, known for his teachings on peace and compassion, as well as for supporting an autonomous Tibet. The Chinese Communist Party, however, considers him a political agitator. So, an ad from Mercedes with the Dalai Lama on it, and, this is terrible. This is bad news. See, this is the problem that we run into, is everybody's trying to run into this great market, the second largest economy, as it's called, third, whatever it is, and do business, and they want the money.
They're just whoring themselves out left and right.
But at the same time,
to get into China.
Mercedes-Benz doesn't have a horse in this race. They just want to make money. They could tell the Chinese government, take a long walk off a short Xi Jinping, right? And off they go. But they don't.
They won't sell any cars in China.
That's right.
After that, right?
They want to sell those cars. The NBA's trouble began after the Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey sparked a furious backlash Friday when he tweeted, "The fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong." So this is the GM of the Rockets here, and he's supporting Hong Kong. Well, that was a problem after his social media account was inundated with criticism. Morey deleted his tweet, and Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta unsuccessfully tried to distance his organization from this sentiment. As Chinese media partners and sponsors quickly cut ties with the Rockets, the NBA issued a statement Sunday expressing great respect for the history and the culture of China, but also defending Morey's right to freedom of expression. The NBA did not discipline Morey. So, they've got this weird situation where they're kicking out protesters at the games. They're trying to support general managers who have opinions. They're trying to continue to do business in China. Nobody wants to say that Xi Jinping looks like Winnie the Pooh. It appears to be a whole bunch of, sidestepping.
There's a big difference between these psychopaths that call themselves the government of China and the Chinese people. The Chinese people are just like the American people. They want to go to work. They want to earn an honest pay, and they want to come home and hug their babies and live happily ever after.
I hear the Chinese love their children too.
And so by saying free Hong Kong or I stand with Hong Kong is not a slam to the Chinese people. It is it is just like getting called anti-Semitic for bashing the Israeli government for killing people who aren't Israelis.
Right, and this is the problem that we have in the world, is we conflate And I do it here on the air. I mean, I don't even know how to, many cases, even how to distinguish. It's finding the verbiage to distinguish a people from the government that claims those people as its citizens or serfs or whatever you, free-range serfs or whatever you want to call them.
That's why I virtue signaled that I do not pledge allegiance to the United States of America every chance I have the opportunity. So people, hopefully on the other side of the world, when they, like, you suck, America, maybe they'll realize that there are people in America who do not support the violent ways of the United States government.
I believe we've been told that Free Talk Live is banned in China, that we can't make it through the Great Firewall. And I suspect if I tried to go there and maybe do remote broadcasts from China and talk about the sort of things that we talk about here in the United States, which thankfully we still have the freedom to complain, that I would be not doing so well. I would certainly be exorcised from their country relatively quickly.
There was show prep we did last year sometime or year before, where there was some guy who was running for some kind of candidate position in China, and like the Chinese police came in and basically made him, not do his campaign anymore. They harassed him because he was like, I forget his platform, but it was, do you remember that at all? It was a few years ago. There was
I don't.
Something which I'll have to find that. But yeah, they'll come in and just, the Chinese government, we don't want you doing this, so stop it or we'll kill you, basically. Or they'll just kill you.
Or they'll just kick you out, in which case you don't, get to do what you do. And I imagine they probably won't do terrible things to an American citizen, especially a white American citizen. A lot of times they will hold people that they sort of consider their own, as it were. 855-450-3733. 855-450-FREE. I welcome Hong Kong dissidents to America to come here and live a better life. Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. Free Talk Live. Call in. Talk about whatever's on your mind. Talking about China. And, well, it's difficult to dance around this hot-button issue for so many companies these days. And I feel for them, but as far as I'm concerned, they should take a harder line against tyrannical regimes. That's my opinion, but I understand they're just trying to make a buck. I want to tell you about Balance of Nature. They're trying to do more than make a buck. So our friend of the show, Riley Blake, who does the Digest, works over there. And, well, so for one thing, they employ blind people. And he, not just blonde people, Angie. Their product will help you to solve some of the problems of eating right. Just 3 Balance of Nature fruit capsules and 3 vegetable capsules, you get 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, and that's a lot of nutrition. After taking Balance of Nature, people report skin looking better, bags under their eyes go away, an increase in energy, body pains reduced or goes away, getting sick less or not at all. And I got to say, I haven't been sick in probably more than a year now, and I don't know what to ascribe that to necessarily, but it's true. You can go online, become a preferred customer, which gives you the best pricing and free shipping. After your 3rd month, Balance of Nature will ship to you at no extra charge an additional set of fruits and veggies. This is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Go to balanceofnature.com and use discount code FTL. Balanceofnature.com, coupon code FTL. I forgot I got sick in Acapulco. So many people go to Mexico and get what they call the turistas. And this is, your bowels not being able to hold together. It's lovely, I must say. They give you little bits of charcoal to take to feel better.
So you basically got a little taste of parasite that your body wasn't used to dealing with, right?
I don't. There's no diagnosis. They said the turistas take these black pills. Anyway, it's balanceofnature.com, coupon code FTL. Let's go to the phones. Got Travis calling in from, looks like Michigan. Travis, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
All's well?
Okay, I guess we're talking about China tonight, so that's what I'll talk about.
You can talk about whatever makes you happy, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll just do this briefly. Well, for a long period of Chinese history, you know, the 40s and 50s and 60s, they were under like pure communism and collective farming, and tens of millions of them died. Then there was this leader that came in, and I forget what his name was, but he brought in free markets, and then they started actually eating and not starving to death. Now, I know that the wages there are terrible, and
but they're getting better.
But they're getting better. I mean, it's better than what was before. It's better. I mean,
middle class is growing.
Time to exploit Africa once you can't exploit China is what I understand.
China's exploiting Africa now.
Right. That's what the next continent.
China's using the systems that they learned by watching the United States to go ahead and put all kinds of the satellite states in Southeast Asia under their control. And now they're moving off to Africa. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, they okay, tonight I wanted to talk about this spy, this whistleblower.
Okay. I can't say I know everything about this. I've been watching, and it looks like the evidence is piling up against Trump, but I don't even believe the media when it comes to Trump, because I think most of reporters are just so mad at Trump, they're looking for something to go after him on. Yeah. So I'm curious about all of it, but not curious enough to read a bunch of it.
There's not even journalists in any cable news network mainstream. They're literally actors reading teleprompters, best I can tell. I mean, the only real journalists you're going to find are the individuals who are doing it from, like, Luke Rudkowski, for example. You know, he's a real journalist. There's just none of them are mainstream because there's just an agenda, and the agenda's war and divide and war and divide. Oh, and sell vaccines too.
Yeah. Well, I look at it like this. I mean, the moment that Hillary lost the election, she claimed that Russians were hacking the election. Now, this is what Russian hacking looks like. It's a Russian guy sharing a pro-Trump meme on some American site. That's about it. That's what she's talking about. I just think it's totally absurd.
I think it's absurd, too. And why shouldn't Russians be able to buy advertising on Facebook that Americans see? It seems absolutely insane to me.
Israel
the idea that somehow the United States hasn't been hacking everybody else's elections for decades is absolutely ridiculous. A little bit of medicine coming back to the United States to me sounds like fairness. And I realize that Hillary lost by a hair's breadth, but I mean, she's coming out of one of the more successful administrations in my lifetime, so why couldn't she win? Maybe it's because she's just one of the most distasteful people in America. Maybe it's because she stacked the deck, and I don't know if she cheated. I can't make the statement. I don't think she needed to cheat. I think she stacked the deck ahead of time, and that the cheating never had to occur. But
I mean, the cheating happened with the DNC and basically knocking Bernie out of it back then, and then I'm pretty sure that Bernie was very much coerced into, supporting or giving support for Hillary, however they do that. But
he certainly bowed right to her as quick as he could.
Yep.
Ran off and bought another house.
Well, Hillary, by the grab him by the you-know-what video, I'm sure she had that months before they released it, and she was just thinking in her head, oh, just wait till this happens. I don't even got a campaign. Because if you look, she was only giving speeches to like 60, 70 people, bank executives, and Trump was flying on his plane. He was giving speeches to groups
stadiums,
of 20, 25,000 people every 3 times a day.
What was amazing is that Trump was paying people to come, giving out huge spreads of food for people to come here in New Hampshire. And then one day it just took off. And I don't know why, I don't know how or what happened, but absolutely. Hillary had the money behind her, the big pocketbooks, and that's what it took to keep going. So I don't know. I'm curious as to what's going to happen with Trump. If more or less, it all comes down to the economy. If the economy's good in November of 2020, Trump gets reelected. If the economy sucks in November of 2020 because Trump messed with the market by throwing tariffs in,
or pushing the Fed to drop interest rates more to create more,
whatever the case may be,
money.
Then that's the way it is. It's going to be Pocahontas sitting in the White House.
Oh, Elizabeth Warren, I can't stand her.
That's Hillary 2.0.
Thanks for the call, Travis. 855-450-3733. I think that Elizabeth Warren's more likable, but she's
Hillary,
more like Bernie Sanders than she is like Hillary Clinton.
And she's bought by all the big establishments, and there's just a long Shiva for Senate in Massachusetts. He had like the best smear campaigns about her and dug out all kinds of dirt.
Vote for a real Indian.
Vote for a real Indian. and he got in the city of Roxbury, give him a big hard time about having a tractor trailer truck that said "Vote for a real Indian" and his name Shiva for Senate on it. Last time around.
Yeah.
But at the Trump rally I went to in Manchester a few months ago, I could not believe the wide diversity. I mean, working class people, suit and tie people, colored people, white people, women, old, young, and it was. There was a huge line to see Trump that day.
855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE.
Gold has definitely been on the move recently, and there is no more secure investment historically. McIlvaney ICA has been helping people take delivery of precious metals and find storage options for decades. They've helped thousands of investors with their precious metal IRAs. Call ICA today for your free portfolio review at 800-525-9556 or download their free report online at ICAGoldSilver.com to learn how you can double your gold and silver ounces even within an IRA. 800-525-9556. ICAGoldSilver.com.
Free Talk Live. Come on, indeed. Call in. The number 855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE, as in freedom. Do you think people understand? I mean, I've heard people have a problem with me understanding the difference between 855-450-3 and 855-450-FREE, because it is 3733 of the letters FREE. But, I mean, when you've got a 800 number and you got this cool, what is it, an anagram? I don't even know what it is. Got the letters and numbers that match up. You want to use it.
Yeah, so I was one of those people years ago. And so I used to listen to, like, the LRN.FM or Free Talk Live listener call-in lines.
Yeah.
So when I was, like, in Colorado
I still do.
I do all the time, like, constantly.
And to explain what those are telephone numbers that you can go to listen.freetalklive.com and get. And you can call in anywhere that you don't have a data plan, or you do have a data plan. You can just call in and listen to Free Talk Live through a telephone line rather than listening on using up your data plan. Some people have different data plans. If you have an unlimited data plan, not a big deal to just listen at LRN.FM.
But sometimes it just isn't data. So when I moved back to New Hampshire is basically when I got a smartphone. I was really hesitant to get a smartphone because I didn't want to be, one of these phone zombies like all my friends.
Now they're tracking you.
And, they're still tracking me on my dumb phone, too. But in a dumb phone, I would just plug in the headphone jack to the phone, to the radio and a tractor. I drove all these nice tractors out in Colorado for hours and hours. And I would listen to Free Talk Live through the phone.
And the rest of the shows at LRN.FM. And there's a huge variety.
The whole thing. I listened to it quite a bit. But the thing is the audio on the phone thing is like there's a lot left out to where the audio is so much better if you listen to the stream.
It's true.
So listen to it through the phone, and sometimes it would just be like the phone on speakerphone on a dashboard of the tractor because it didn't have a radio I could plug into. But a lot of times listening on a call-in line, you definitely don't, like you guys, everybody sounds so much better on a stream.
Sure.
But the 450 free or 450 3733 was a little confusing.
It's confusing because it's 450-3733. I try to say it all the way through.
Right.
But,
It's confusing listening over a phone line. It is much more clear listening to a stream. That's where I noticed a difference.
Here's what I say. If you think you might call in at any point, or you've ever been confused, take down the number. 855-450-3733. And then you can just call us. You don't need once you put it in your phone, you put Free Talk Live, then it doesn't make a difference. Once it's in there, it's easy to call.
I think you sound great, Mark.
Thank you.
You're
become an AMP member, and then you get access to the AMP line.
Yeah, well, then you're going to just confuse me on a Wednesday night. But yeah, I mean, I can figure it out. We've got a new AMP phone system, and it is a lot easier to use.
And we're going to use that tonight on Freer Talk Live, which is going to start at 10:30. Silver Dave, Pope Nobody, and myself. And the AMP line will be available for call-in.
Pope Nobody has plenty of time because he did not win the Keene election as mayor.
We got lots of things for Pope Nobody to do.
But he'll be running for something else, I'm sure. Governor?
Yeah, he actually wanted
onward and upward.
He wanted me to be his running mate for governor, so it could be nobody and no one.
That's hilarious. 855-450-3733. Let's go to David calling in from New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live. David, you're on Free Talk Live. Well, something's going on here. I'm just going to leave that phone line open. I think that the board op has got something going on, and I'm not entirely sure how it's going. So, Jay, there's a student who apparently has been suspended for wearing a hat.
Yeah.
That says taxation is theft.
I love this kid already.
In the drug war.
He's my hero. Yeah, so what he was doing down there in Florida, they call him E in the article. And
E? The kid's name is E?
Because they don't want to release his name.
Okay.
I would love to support this kid, like if he had a cryptocurrency address or,
Yeah, they're not going to make that easy, yeah.
Right. And I would really like it if people, kind of harass the school administration here. I did scan through the article pretty quick earlier in the show, and I didn't come up with what school he was actually in. But so he wears a hat that says taxation is theft. And I always wear something that's, provocative.
Just about all the time. We got a T-shirt on right now that says "Freedom's the answer. What's the question?"
That's right. It's a Jordan Page song. If you guys check out Jordan Page, he's got some great freedom music. Anyways, so the kid was passing out literature on a libertarian guy running for
Berman,
president, and he and I never even heard of him till tonight, and he is anti-drug war, and the kid was passing out basically anti-drug war propaganda, and got suspended from school for 5 days.
Yeah, this doesn't have a picture. It has Berman 2020 in the drug war. It doesn't it's not like it's got a pot leaf. He's got taxation is theft on a hat with that flat bill on the hat, on the ball cap that I just hate the look of. I'm sitting here with a Free Talk Live ball cap on, and my ball cap is kind of curved in that country boy style that was popular when I was in school. But I suspect the young man who's sitting behind me probably would. Oh no, he's got the country boy curve to it. That whole flat thug look I just can't stand. But anyway, nonetheless, he's got a taxation is theft hat here, and I'm willing to forgive a lot of sins if your hat says taxation is theft.
So the article is from themindunleashed.com. Starts off, standard education in America typically focuses on creating a supply of worker bees who follow orders from authority and operate within the confines that the system has set out, but lacking critical thinking skills. So, I mean, right there, it just explains why the school just cracks down so hard on, taxation is theft is really, to understand that, takes some critical thinking, because we are just brainwashed to believe that taxation, is necessary for society and roads and all this stuff.
And it looks like it was really the message, because it says the administration claimed that I can't wear hats outside, when it actually says in the Florida Constitution that students can in fact wear hats or other headgear outside, E told the Free Thought Project. But this was just the beginning. When E began, that's the kid's name, began to hand out, not his real name, flyers for the 2020 presidential campaign of Dan Berman, who advocates for ending the drug war and the taxation is theft, all hell broke loose. E quickly found himself surrounded by school staff who, he says, attempted to detain him for handing out the flyers. I tried to leave the cafeteria when I was told I wasn't being detained, and I only stayed because I was followed, harassed, and coerced into doing so, he said. A deputy would then get involved and told the school administrators that E was filming them. They got the deputy involved for the first time because I started recording. The deputy was nearby when they confronted me for handing out the flyers, and then the deputy walked up to us and was like, I'd like to let you know that he might be recording without your knowledge. I was suspended out of school for 5 days for the flyers and refusing to turn them in and being skeptical of their claims of what the rules are, said he. They lied to me about what the hat rule, so I was thinking that they might be lying again. They didn't allow the opportunity for me to look up the rule because they knew that they could have possibly been wrong. So, here it is. The Florida State Constitution said the kid's allowed to wear the hat, and he's not allowed to wear the hat. And the teachers don't like it because he's saying that the funding of their, big fat bureaucrat paychecks is theft. And look, if the school's there to do one thing, it's there to teach you that you cannot live without the state. That's its job. Its job is to make sure, but it's not to get you to read or any of those things. It's to teach you
to be
that you can't live
authority
without the state. 855-450-3733. It's 855-450 free as in freedom here on Free Talk Live, or the Discord lines at discord.freetalklive.com. Sound great. 855-450-FREE. Final segment of Free Talk Live. We might be able to squeeze you in. The number is 855-450-3733. It's 855-450-FREE. Discord lines at discord.freetalklive.com. It's Mark with you.
Jay.
And Angie.
Let's go right to the phones. Go to first David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, but China. Can you hear me this time?
I got you this time.
Yeah. What happened the first time?
It's a mystery. The wonders of modern conveniences.
Yeah, it's I'm too close to Roswell. China. But first of all, Jay, thanks for the memory. When I was a kid, when I was 10 years old, I used to drive a $500,000 tractor hour after hour after hour. And
I know all about
when
that.
I was 10 years old, I had a 1950s International Harvester that my dad had rigged up 5 tractor tires with some fence to drag cow poo around the pasture just to make the fields grow better. I mean, where did you all get these great tractors?
Well, my stepfather is a Republican welfare whore. He is all subsidized, Monsanto, everything. But there's a video. I think it's if you do Jay Noon YouTube, there's some videos I made for my nephews. Uncle Jay, what work I was doing. There's one video I got, a couple videos of these tractors drive on autopilot, and you'd haul a 20-foot wide implement, like a tiller of some sort, and it would overlap 2 inches. And that thing, all you had to do was at the end of the field. All GPS. And these worked off a locator that you just put it on the hood of the pickup truck, and then it would locate the tractor, and you would set your rows, and when you come to the end of the field, if you fall asleep or something, it would just keep going straight. That happens once in a while, or every now and then a guy out there has got a brand new 40-foot tilling device in the back of their tractor, and they clip a natural gas well, and big flame goes up in the air. But they just drive themselves. All you have to do is turn them around. And some of these fields is you go literally a mile and then turn around at 4.5 miles an hour.
What's the pay like, David, for sitting on one of these things and barely staying awake?
At 10?
Well, at 10, yeah.
You just did it.
It's free.
0?
Yeah.
Right now, if you want to do this in Colorado, I mean, and you got half a brain over the table, they'll pay you $25-$30 an hour. They got to compete with oil out there. So,
what's on your mind, David?
And China, but also today in unnecessary editing, I can answer Angie's question. Why do people go down on their knees?
Yeah.
And actually, Mark had already given you the answer. He was talking about that it was he was talking about a magazine, but Business Insider.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you either got it or you don't. Anyway, moving on. China. You don't have to go to China or the NBA to get the that treatment. Think in terms of China and the NBA, what's going on with that, and then let's come to New Mexico, and let's take the state in New Mexico, sometimes known as the People's Republic of New Mexico, and let's take some taxpayer money and let's buy ourselves a university where we can brainwash and program students and have unlimited slush funds to wash money, launder money, and then divvy it up how we want to. Like people in New Mexico will recognize golfing trips to Scotland is one of them. There's Paul Krebs, a guy who's going on trial for embezzling money.
Nice to be king, isn't it?
Program. Yeah, and anyway, so then with that public institution, that taxpayer dollars, you have yourselves a bunch of different departments, and you might have yourself a radio station that you use for your propaganda efforts for putting out the message. Matter of fact, if you do that as an experiment, tune into KUNM Radio, KUNM.org. Listen to their radio. Tune in anytime, and within minutes, you will hear the leftist propaganda. You will not hear any conservative right messages. You will only hear left. So that's a propaganda machine. And then somebody like myself calls in when I'm invited to on a program called Let's Talk New Mexico, where they invite people to call in. And so I call in, and I might beg to differ with some of their leftist propaganda that they're spending taxpayer dollars on. And then what happens? What is China, the University of New Mexico, what is the NBA, the University of New Mexico, what do they do to a voice like mine that might call into their propaganda machine? What do you think might happen?
I think they'd stifle you and demand your tax dollars to do it. And it's a fascinating story. Keep us abreast of it, David. Thank you for the call. 855-450-3733. Let's go to Olivia calling in from Arizona. Olivia, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, Mark and Angie and Jay. I wanted to just make a brief comment about China, and then, if I can, about the high school kid. So there's a really good YouTube channel called China Uncensored on YouTube. They have videos like every couple of days on this whole thing. I hope this turns out well, but I have a terrible feeling Hong Kong's not going to turn out well. I hope somebody can flee to Taiwan or something. Or America would be nice if we would let these good people in.
I don't see why they wouldn't. You would think that people who have enjoyed economic freedom over a course of decades would be really good folks to choose to let in the country. But I don't know what the United States is going to do. It's probably going to kiss China's butt like everybody else does.
Unfortunately, I can't believe how spineless the rockets are being. Nothing would make me happier if everybody just gave them the finger and never bought another piece of merchandise again. But
right. Well,
I just wanted to comment.
Free Talk Live was banned in China before it was ever cool, so there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the kid in his taxationist theft hat?
Oh my gosh, I hope the ACLU gets all over this. I don't know if they will, but I have to be honest, thanks to public high school, I got introduced to libertarianism because I had a best friend who was libertarian. There was a lot of libertarian kids at my school, but one in particular, she refused, this is on the ACLU website still, she refused to stand for the pledge, and of course she got in-school suspension or something stupid like that, so she called the ACLU, and they showed up at my school and said, we will see you in court if you do this again. And so my school had to make a policy, thanks to her, that you don't have to stand for the pledge. It was awesome. So her name's Rosa Salas, if you want to look her up.
I think that, what was her name?
Rosa, S-A-L-A-S. Salas. You can look her up.
Yeah, I think at my school they wanted you to stand, but you didn't have to say it. Was their sort of break-even point?
Well, she wouldn't stand.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't stand either. I was essentially this kid in high school. I was constantly, I was very proud I didn't have a social slavery number, as I referred to it, and I was constantly, in history class, it was like, oh, okay, U.S. history. You need to either be on the north or the south. I'm like, I'm going out west. I'm going to be a cowboy. I don't want to fight. Why are you going to make me fight? You know? And I was always debunking everything that they would say about, I remember in U.S. history, the Second Amendment gives a right to bear arms to police and military.
What?
That's what they said. It said in the Scott Forsman, which is a government printer, book when I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
And actually, my dad really schooled me good for hours on just destroying this teacher, essentially, on Second Amendment and the right to bear arms and all that stuff. And And the teacher actually really came around, and the teacher was pretty darn good, but there was a lot of parent-teacher. I never got suspended over any of these kind of things, though.
Well, it just shows somebody who's interested in learning, and will fight fair. I'm all only for people. If they'll fight fair, then I'm ready to have a conversation. If they're going to use the power of the state and say, well, he sounds threatening, and this kind of stuff, because that's what basically they're doing with this kid. This kid has a taxationist theft hat and is passing out propaganda about ending the drug war. The teachers surround him and try to stop him from basically doing what he's allowed to do. You don't like. If the state doesn't like people passing out stuff within their bounds, then they shouldn't have rules about peacefully assembling. Oh, the state shouldn't be involved in school anyway. I can see why a school says you aren't allowed to pass out stuff, but I can't see why a school's funded by the government through force. So that's the problem. Olivia?
I think they're so wrong. They know they're wrong for stopping that kid. Like, that is outrageous. I don't know.
I think the ACLU is going to get him, just like you said.
I hope they destroy him.
So.
Thanks for the call.
All right, thanks.
Yep. 855-450. I'm giving out the number, and here we are at basically at the end of the show. I don't think that nobody who did this is going to really face any consequences, even if the ACLU comes in and kind of scares the life into the school, and they're like, oh yeah, well,
I want to find out who this kid is in the school.
Me too.
I'm going to do a little homework on it. I want to talk about it next week when I'm on, and
love to have him on.
I like the idea of supporting this kid, and I hope that this kid has a lot of fun with this, because if you're not having fun,
you're not doing it right. Indeed. Check us out at freetalklive.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Sign up for the Telegram group. You can get all our show prep that we have there. It's freetalklive.com.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com.
You love Bitcoin. It's the future, right? Well, no, not if everyone stops using it. I mean, think about it. How many places in your town take Bitcoin? One? None? Let's be real. If this Bitcoin thing is ever going to happen, it's going to need your help. The good news is, the guys at AnyPay have your back. We built a website called helpmetakebitcoin.com, and it's a place you can send any business, and they'll be set up to take Bitcoin in 5 minutes. helpmetakebitcoin.com.